Welcome to British BioMedicine Institute. Today I, Dr. Pramod Khatri, Medical Director of British BioMedicine Clinical Trials, is going to teach you a simple topic named as Vaccinovigilance, identification and management of potential risk which are associated with vaccines. So, the basic definition of vaccine pharmacovigilance is that it is a science and activity which is related to the detection, assessment, understanding, communication of adverse event following immunization or other vaccine related programs, and it helps us to prevent any untoward effect of vaccines or immunizations in the form of filling SIOMS or WHO group on vaccine pharmacovigilance. The basic terminology of AEFI is adverse event following immunization without necessarily having a causal relationship with the usage of vaccine. Immunization is basically a process of making a person immune to a particular type of disease like COVID. Vaccination is basically administration of a vaccine to a patient. Under the prophylactic vaccine, there are very specific issues, like they are usually administered to large group of healthy volunteers or individuals. Some vaccines are mandatory. There can be a concomitant administration also, and there are also single dose vaccines where there can be no challenge or re-challenge or de-challenge. And if there are high vaccine uptake, then it will increase the chances of incidence cases of natural disease. And basically these vaccines, they have long-term immunological effect on the human body. These vaccines, they are basically consist of complex biological products, and they can also give various complex immunological responses. There can be a change in or variability in the manufacturing process, and it can show genetic, demographic and other characteristics of the vaccines in patients. So there is a requirement for population awareness so that there can be a spontaneous reporting of adverse effects which are related to the immunization, and various immunological changes they can be induced by the vaccines when they are administered. So inside the vaccine, basically a signal detection method again work here, like that which is working in pharmacovigilance. So basically, in order to identify vaccine related side effects, signal can be used to identify in the form of spontaneous reporting. There can be an active surveillance. We can use patient registries. Literature reviews can also be used, and there can be various experiments, data mining and observations. So basically signals can be identified from the new potentially causal relationship, or we can say vaccine versus event. The main management of signal is through signal validation or confirmation. There can be prioritization also, and signal assessment can be done upon the evidence on epidemiologic or biological plausibility. There can be a post-authorization safety and efficacy studies, or we can say PAS or PAES. And we can also study mechanistic studies can also be conducted. And based upon the recommendation of action, we can identify the causal association, either it is confirmed, it is rejected, or further investigations are required. The standardized case definitions of adverse events are basically a key element for signal validation and evaluations, as they provide a common terminology and understanding of adverse events or reactions, and thus allow comparability of the clinical data. As the definition which has been published by Brighton Collaborations, but if a Brighton collaboration definition is not available, then the definition which is used should be carefully chosen based on the scientific criteria and amenables. Like your pandemics or narcolepsy, or if suppose there was a rotavirus vaccination, or whether there was a correlation or adverse event which like your interceptions, or if there was a HPV vaccination, then it can have shown the signs and symptoms of CRPS or POTS, whereas pandemics should have shown a narcolepsy sign and symptom. So under your single report, basically a single report of a serious adverse event should be processed as a signal only if there is a possible causal relationship to the vaccination program. The validation of a report requires adequate information on the vaccination date, the clinical course of the event, like your time of onset, sign and symptoms, result of relevant laboratory and diagnostic test, evaluation or treatment of the event. There can also be a medical or vaccination history also, co-medications which were prescribed, and detail of vaccines administered, including the brand name, batch number, route of administration, and dose, site of action. So under your disproportionality analysis, basically it is a statistical association which does not imply any kind of causal relationship between the administration of a vaccine and occurrence of an adverse event. Vaccine may require special consideration when applying these methods, like there can be an intrinsic difference between vaccine and other medicinal products. The safety profile of a vaccine may differ substantially within a targeted population, and cautions are basically required after a safety alert is been initiated. So under your output input, basically we can have a look at the observed or expected analysis. The major strength will be make best use of suspected adverse drug reaction reports. Observed versus expected, OE. Analysis based on good quality data that can be optimized in utilizing the passive surveillance clinical data. We can allow determination of strength of a signal for prioritization and further evaluation. And it can also help in communication of these clinical data, particularly when serious, rare, reported events are well within the expected range. But such analysis cannot exclude risk or determine the causality which is related to the vaccination program. So under the major limitations of your OE, observed or expected analysis, are the observed number of cases can be underreported. The level of there can be a difference in the level of vaccine exposure, and again there will be an uncertainty in the level of diagnostics. But the background incidence rate, they cannot be basically expected. Here the sensitivity analysis should be applied in statistical analysis around assumed level of underreporting, or we can say number of confirmed or non-confirmed cases. So in order to identify the signals for your HPV, POTS or CRPS, we can search for database and we can work on the queries. There can be an overlap of symptoms with other symptoms like SCF. There can be incomplete medical histories, timing of event, diagnostic confirmations or absence of other cases also. There can be an underreporting of cases, OE. There can be limited epidemiological evidences and mechanistic process will be difficult to identify the adverse events related to the vaccination program. Under your epidemiological studies, basically, this study cannot establish causality as the circumstances under which they are conducted often are observational in nature and therefore liable to co-founding and biasness in the form of your selection and in the clinical information. So the main conclusion at the end is vaccination is one of the most effective and widely used public health intervention whose benefit for individuals, for patients and the community has been abundantly demonstrated. The importance of transparency and communications to the outside world on the challenge, signal management, risk management and the impact of risk management in the context of benefit is not studied, not assessed. No vaccine is without risk, but everything is at risk that need a proper education to the common population through media. There can also be a misinterpretation of adverse health outcomes that are only temporarily related to the vaccination, which will not only threaten the success of vaccination program but also potentially hinder the development of new vaccines for the outbreaks like your coronavirus. So the recommendations are development and availability of database that can provide locally relevant background rate of disease incidence are important to aid assessment of vaccine safety concerns. There is an importance of quality database and data linkage. There can be an improved reporting, either your active or your passive surveillance or accurate exposure data. Importance of case definition of adverse event typically reported to vaccines like your SIOMs. Epidemiological studies should attempt to deal with awareness bias in sensitivity analysis and importance of mechanistic studies when association is detected, especially between the adjuncted vaccines or unexpected adverse events for which the autoimmune aspect is unknown or challenged. So I hope you have gained a lot of clinical information through this presentation. Please like, share, subscribe our YouTube channel named as British Biomedicine Institute. Good luck. Goodbye.